Right, let's go for a wander. I'm going to flip around the camera so you've got a Steph's eye view of the place and start to give you your bearings. So, flip this round. So, I just did a little clip outside the sales office. So if I pan round, you can see Sainsbury's building with the apartments over. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. You've got the hotel, pub and restaurant. I'm going to talk about that. See some of the new homes that are being built. And you can see the street through the middle. So this is Camp Road, and what's really interesting is this is a straight street. It's a lesser spotted straight street. Now, why is that interesting? Well, most new developments up and down the country have got curvy streets. You know, they snake their way through, and you might wonder, well, why is that? Well, it's this idea that if you curve streets, you control vehicle speed, you slow cars down. And the thinking is that if you have straight streets, people will just drive faster and faster and faster and faster. Now, Camp Road is, been inherited by this development, but what it proves is that the thinking that straight streets increase vehicle speeds doesn't actually ring true. Now, why is that happening? Well, you can maybe just see in the distance you've got a zebra crossing, you've got a car there reversing onto the front of its property. You can pull onto your property, forward gear, reverse gear, whatever. But all this is creating what urban designers and street engineers call side friction, which is you've got activity along the edge of the street, and you've got visual cues and activity cues that are encouraging people to drive in a bit more of a sensitive way or a bit more of a cautious way. You can see there's little deflections along the way, but on the whole, this is a straight street. And one of the good things about straight streets is they're more direct, they're more efficient, so you create sort of more square or rectangular development blocks, so they are much easier and efficient for developers to build and fill. And when we've got a housing crisis and everybody's wanting to protect the green belt, then why wouldn't we build in a more efficient way? But straight streets are also good because they're much easier for us to create a mental map of a place. The other thing you can see here as I pan round is I pointed out the Heyford Hotel, and you've got a bar underneath there. You've got the Baton Bistro, which is linked to the hotel, but that's functioning as the pub for the local community. And across the other side of the street, if I pan round, you've got not only the Sainsbury's, but you've got a cycle shop and coffee shop combined, and you've got lots of people in there at the moment. And you've also got a really interesting Sainsbury's local. Now, one thing that's really interesting, well, a few things that are really interesting about this is that you've got a loading bay on the street. So what that means is we're not having to accommodate a big loading bay at the back of the building and all the turning circles you need for these big vehicles. You're just doing loading from the street. So this Sainsbury's lorry has just come up Camp Road and pulled in and is doing the servicing at the front. So if people tell you, oh, you can't do servicing at the front, you can. So imagine if we were having to get that vehicle round the back and create a large service area and all those sorts of things. You can imagine what sort of challenges that creates. So servicing at the front. But the other thing that's really interesting is you've got apartments above the shops. So you're creating a bit of a high street with scale. So not only are you creating different uses that bring life to a place, but you're creating density, you're creating sort of bigger buildings that say to people, this is the middle of our community. You've got really generous balconies, and you can see people putting tables and chairs on there, really large windows. So some really thoughtfully designed balconies, but you've also got clear windows to the shop. which all too often you'll be told, no, you can't have clear windows to the store. Well, you can, and it creates a really important connection between what's happening inside a building and outside the building. I mean, we all know those convenience stores where you've got big pictures of strawberries. Urban designers will always tell you to create active frontages, and by active frontages we mean lots of windows and doors to the street. And by windows we mean windows that you can see through, because it creates that connection between what's happening on the street and what's happening inside the building. So really neat solution here. So I'm going to flip off the camera now and let's go for another wonder.